Welcome back to the First Team. I'm Joe DeLeone. With me is my co-host, NFL draft analyst for A to Z Sports, Ryan Roberts. Today, we're going to be breaking down the film from the Oklahoma-Tennessee game, letting you know what future players to watch out for in this great sport of college football and also the NFL, who's going to move on to the NFL draft. I got to start this conversation off, Ryan. One thing that stands out to me so much, you could probably guess, it's the Tennessee defensive line. That Tennessee defensive line is freaking nuts. And where I'm going with this, the shout out has to go to the defensive coordinator, the defensive line coach at Tennessee. Those guys are coached up. The energy,
Tim Banks,
the amount that they're...
Tim Banks? I think his name's Tim Banks, the defense
I was going to check
coordinator.
that in a second. I think that you're right. But, dude, the energy that they have on a snap-to-snap basis, the way that they play, there are guys that you haven't even heard of that are playing with great hand usage, just so highly thought out and aggressive on a snap-to-snap basis. That defensive line, we're probably going to talk about a ton of them here on today's show.
We are, because obviously the conversation points as far as like who's the top NFL draft prospect for 2025 in this in this game is obviously James Pierce Jr., who has been just kind of slow and banged up to start the year, and he hasn't been like overly effective because he hasn't been playing much because he's just been banged up. And Joe, like, we didn't see vintage James Pierce Jr. in this game, in my opinion, but you saw the flashes. Like I posted yesterday, there were two clips specifically where I was like, okay, that looks more and more like James Pierce Jr. because he's just been like banged up and slowed a little bit. But man, when he's on and he's healthy, that kid has all pro potential as a pass rusher, dude. And we saw that a little bit against Oklahoma, has a terrible offensive line that we'll also talk about a little bit.
Rodney Garner is the defensive line coach, which I wish I pulled that up ahead of time. But I mean, there are just so many different names that you can look at playing in the roles that are specific to them being successful. One of the things that was mentioned during the broadcast is that they're so deep that they just keep rotating guys in. And so then when you pull up the tape and you watch them, you start to see all these guys that are just in for a series, and then it's the next group that's in. They're so fresh. They're so ready to go. 3 guys that I wrote down that are not the typical big names. Elijah Simmons, number 10. Number 55, Omar Lott Norman.
That's
and
the
then
guy. Yeah.
One of the younger cats that I think is an up-and-comer that didn't play as much as these guys, but number 53, David Hobbs, who you saw quite a bit of the flexibility, the power that he has. But you just mentioned there, Omar Lott Norman, man. He's got great hands. I didn't know who
Norman Lott. You said Lott Norman. Norman Lott.
I don't know why I had it written down the other way around. Are you sure? Oh, Norman Lott.
Yeah, I'm looking at the depth chart right in front of me.
Norman Lott. Omar Norman Lott, who has awesome hands. Did not know who he was coming into this game, as you can tell because I messed up his name. He is somebody that I'm going to be paying attention to for this upcoming class.
6'3", 315 pounds, Arizona State transfer, though. So that is where Norman Lott's. I'm saying it right? I want to make sure I'm not. Yes, Norman Lott.
Omar Norman Lott. I fixed it in my notes.
I knew the name, but I didn't know how good he was because actually Lorenz Lineweber over at RPM Data actually recommended him.
Is that how you say his last name?
Lineweber. Yeah, Lineweber.
Okay.
Lineweber. Yeah.
Okay.
So he recommended Norman Lott off of his 2023 tape as a draftable football player, obviously, and a guy that's going to be on the radar. But I had not watched him because I didn't end up doing that cross check. But this kid, I mean, the poor right guard for Oklahoma, number 54, he did not want to see 55 ever again in his entire life, whether that's on the college or the NFL level, because this kid is pretty low built to the ground, plays with good leverage, really strong hands, but he's pretty flexible too, dude. Like I wouldn't say necessarily cat quick, but I would say like his ability to get his hands inside, great extension, gain extension, and work either an outside or an inside shoulder and work from a gap to or a man to a gap was pretty impressive, dude. He has some really good flexibility to be able to kind of create that penetration. He had a couple quarterback hits in this game. He had a nice run stop right at the line of scrimmage in this game, which was a very impressive rep working inside shoulder on number 54. So yeah, man, this kid was arguably the best player on their defense. I mean, I think that there's one guy particularly that we'll talk about, I'm sure, in this podcast that I think was actually the best overall player on this defense on Saturday. But I would say that that Norman Lott certainly has a argument to be made because he was dominant up front. And I mean, Oklahoma couldn't run the football. I think they ran the ball 34 times for 36 yards or something like that. And obviously college stacks are included in that total, so it's not like a perfect indicator, but like they couldn't run the ball against that front.
Yeah, I was pretty geeked up watching him. There's one clip that I pulled that I was going to post after we finished where he completely rips underneath, great pad level, underneath the guard that he was going up against, comes up, and then makes a play on the football. Number 10, big Elijah Simmons, though. I'm not going to like totally push the, like, this is a riser in the class. Older player, but holy hell, that kid is wide.
340
I take
listed.
a day
340 listed. Yeah.
I would take a day 3 pick somewhere late day 3 on him. Not like a whole lot of flexibility. There were a couple times where he was kind of put on the ground, but wow, that kid takes up space. Wow, that kid can really anchor because he's so heavy.
And he's not even a starter, too. Like, so imagine this world, Joe, where Amari Thomas, number 21, who had a pretty good game himself. Imagine a world where you're a center and you're going against a nose that is 6'4", 325 pounds, and you're like, oh, thank gosh, he's finally out of the football game. And then here comes 6'2", 340 right behind him, right? It's just like, dang, dude. And this has happened quick. I mean, everybody talks about offensive football for Josh Heupel for obvious reasons because he's a great offensive mind. But where the heck did this Tennessee defense come from, dude? Like, he has done a tremendous job of just being able to build the trenches and build a talent on that side of the football under defensive coordinator Tim Banks. Like, this defensive unit is stacked, man. Like, there's not really a weak point in this defense right now.
Who else on this defense caught your eye?
One quick mention, because I watched him at BYU. Keenan Peely, number 11, 6'3", 240-pound linebacker. Joe, when I watched him at BYU, he was kind of lumbering, for the lack of a better term, as a middle linebacker. I just thought he was just kind of like, he was a B-gap to B-gap type of player. Like, he wasn't a great movement guy. This game, Tennessee used him up on the line of scrimmage a little bit. They used him as a spy. They delayed blitzed him. I don't think that he's a coverage linebacker on the next level, but like as a Sam linebacker who can do some stuff on the line of scrimmage, the closing speed that he showcased, the one I can't remember if it was against Jackson Arnold or if it was against Hawkins, the backup that came in, the quarterback, but there was a rollout where he just out of a cannon and the closing speed to get to the quarterback for a quarterback hit on that play. Keenan Peely, I think, is just a guy to keep an eye on as a day 3 kind of Sam linebacker type player. But the star for me, the star that I wanted to highlight most is Jermod McCoy, the corner, number 3. He is listed
I was literally about to bring him up.
Okay, so
the Oregon State transfer.
Yes, Oregon State transfer, was a big portal kid, was heavily demanded in the portal. 6 foot, 193 pounds. For my money, Joe, on either side of the ball, this was the best football player on Tennessee on Saturday, in my opinion. This kid, someone put it up for cross-check after the game. I put a top 50 on him right now as a sophomore.
Yeah.
Like, top 50, I'm cool. He's probably going to be a first-round pick. 6 foot, 193, really physical, really good line of scrimmage. But then there was a rep against Brennan Thompson, who is a former track and field star on the high school level for Oklahoma, where, dude, stride for stride with this dude on a vertical plane. I'm like,
I know the play that you're talking. I clipped that out. I know the exact play that you're talking about. We're
talking about a physical press man corner that can run. That plays, right? Like, that plays on the NFL level because you're going to be put in press situations. You're going to be in trail technique a decent amount. And if you have that type of makeup speed to work vertically, that's the goods. So Mr. McCoy, number 3, I think he's a true sophomore. He's either a true sophomore.
I believe he is. I don't think he's eligible for this upcoming class, but so a couple other things to build off of what you talked about. Seems very high energy, and you can tell that he's confident in his abilities. Long arms that help him play in these press situations that you're talking about. The interception that he had, I watched, it's like, okay, that's a good play, but that should not have been thrown by Jackson Arnold because that was an egregious decision. There were 4 DBs and his receiver wasn't even close to open. That's a keep the ball, tuck it and run, do something there. Quick old man moment.
Oh, no.
Or maybe young man moment. I hate 2 route concepts in offenses because you're just burying yourself that when you pull it, maybe in these RPO situations, whatever it might be, and there's no options, the play is cooked. So young quarterback Jackson Arnold is going to throw that interception because he doesn't know what to do.
You need to send a letter then to head coach Sean McVay of the LA Rams, because he was kind of the guy that really got this craze going, man. Like Max Pro 2-man rep, he would do just kind of like a deep drag and a deep over from the opposite side, and like that was the route combination. Yeah, I know you're not a fan.
The problem is that Matthew Stafford works because he's played a million snaps and he knows what he's doing. But this poor young kid,
Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and Robert Woods, like those also work too, right?
Yeah, like great route runners who know how to win in tight contested situations. But we're forcing Jackson Arnold, who the poor kid is just getting set up to fail. That's a separate conversation for a separate day. Please, for the love of God, stop putting these kids in situations where they have one decision to make and then they make the wrong decision. They're not going to assess the situation correctly.
So what you're saying is that Seth Littrell from Jeff Lebby has not been a great transition so far, is what you're saying. Not the best transition of all.
No, he has not. And that should not be a hot take because their offense has been nauseating, incredibly nauseating to watch. And that game, this is the situation too, where you step into a game where all of the deficiencies for the game leading up to this, and I said this in the preview on Ruffino and Joe show, that when you're having offensive issues and you're overcoming them because you're facing teams with defensive imbalances that you can attack, all of your issues when you go up against a well-schemed defense that is deep will get completely accentuated. And that's exactly what happened. The only reason why this game ended up being close is because you brought in a backup quarterback with a completely different skill set that the defense did not prepare for. So the game plan completely went out the window.
And we'll get to that side of the ball, obviously, but Oklahoma defense played well for the most part, man. Like they let up a couple big plays, but the Oklahoma defense played a good football game, in my opinion, for the most part. So yeah.
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts. To finish McCoy, though, no, I think he's going to be an early contender for CB2, CB3 for maybe the upcoming
CB1
class.
Who knows, dude? Like who knows?
Who else is in that 2026 class? Not to get ahead of ourselves.
Who's a sophomore corner this year? I'm not even sure. I would need to.
Damani Jackson's probably like the first one.
Christian Gray from Notre Dame. I guarantee he's going to be in that conversation, dude. Yeah. He's going to be in that conversation. Carmani McClain has not been a guy so far, so maybe not a great corner class early. Not 100% sure on that.
Wait, this is getting a little bit off. Tangent.
No, you're fine. I know it was the Carmani McClain, Christian Gray. Trying to think who else. The Harris kid that transferred from Georgia to Penn State. That kid was in that class as well. He was pretty good.
It's way too hard to pull up and find
just go for 247, man.
That's what I did, and the list that pulled up was just completely.
Right, here, you talk for 10 seconds. I'm going to find it right now, okay? Because this is what I did.
Okay, Desmond Ricks is one of those guys
who hasn't really played much, right? I mean, Carmani McClain, AJ Harris is the kid that was talking about the AJ. Okay. State. Jakeem Jackson from Florida, Malik Muhammad from Texas. Not a great.
Jaleel Hurley, Jermaine Matthews. Yeah, a lot of these guys have not really played. Malik Muhammad would probably be in that conversation when we.
Jair Hill, the number 20 from Michigan, that has not had a. He was the kid that struggled against Texas a little bit.
To finish the thoughts here, though, on McCoy, though, I think you painted it perfectly. I was pretty geeked up on him, and I was watching him, and I'm like, okay, who is this cat? I've never seen him before. I always get excited when you pull up a depth chart and you see sophomore. It's like, I found somebody that nobody's probably talked about yet because nobody is sick enough in the head as we are to pull up these early young guys. I'm excited about him, though. He's somebody that has a very high ceiling. Is there anyone on this Oklahoma offensive line that you like?
No. Joe, I know I'm a jerk sometimes, right? And I know I went to the Twitter space.
I'm shocked.
Yes. I went to the Twitter space to showcase that my preseason take of this being one of the worst offensive lines Oklahoma's had in a very long time was correct. But yeah, I mean, dude, it's not. There's nobody worth talking about. I was told in the preseason that their best offensive lineman was number 54, the right guard, the North Texas transfer, and he was maybe their worst offensive lineman in that game. So yeah, it's not a good offensive line at all.
I have to say this about Deion Burks.
Yeah.
It pains me so much that he left.
That he's a screen jet sweep guy now? That's all he is right now? Yeah, it kind of pains a little bit. Agreed.
He left an offense that didn't know how to get him the football, but still produced quality statistics for his situation. To step into an offense that doesn't know how to get him the fall. He went backwards in his usage. Like, yeah. I'm so appalled because at least at Purdue, he could have been, yes, he was a fantastic player in the slot, and that's the kind of the big hype for him is that he's this really strong, compact player that if he is given the ball in a contested situation, he's going to power through those tackles. He's going to win after the catch. But man, I was really hoping this year that we were going to get to see more of him as this deep threat and really stressing defenses. And Latrell, holy shit, man. Why are you not running more deep concepts with this kid? Like you could be opening up and you don't even need to take those shots, but you could be opening up your offense so much more if you're scheming him those opportunities to at least stress a defense to have to prepare for it. I don't know what it is about the year 2024, but so many offensive coordinators are refusing to be aggressive. I don't know why and what has happened in the landscape of offensive coordinating, but this is the epitome of what has been a very weird year.
So yeah, I mean it's super frustrating because you remember the Oklahoma spring game, Joe, where you saw Deion Burks win like down the field and stuff, and you're like, oh, okay, this might be a thing. This might be a thing, and unfortunately, it has not been a thing at all. I mean, it's even the opener where he had like 3 touchdowns. It was all short stuff for the most part, man. And I think he had like 1 goal line fade, littered in there, right? Like. You're just not making him a well-rounded receiver. You know that kid is lightning in a bottle. You know he's super quick. You know he's explosive. And you saw that on literally the only things that you could get going basically offensively against Tennessee was when you could hit the edges occasionally with Deion Burks in the screen or the run game. Like that's literally all you could do. So it's super frustrating because I just don't think we're going to see the best version of Deion Burks. I think that unfortunately you're putting a cap on how high he's going to get drafted right now. I mean, because like, What he's probably a 3rd to 4th round pick right now because of all the explosive things he could do. But there was thoughts that if he has a rise, maybe he could be a top 50 type of kid. And I don't think that rise is going to happen in this offense, unfortunately. And it's not his fault. Like, it's not his fault. I am curious to see how this offense evolves because we didn't see it on Saturday, but like Nick Anderson played a little bit, but he's been banged up. Jaleel Farouk, the other wide receiver, has been banged up. Andrew Anthony's been banged up. Like the wide receiver position is just so shot. Maybe when they get more healthy, maybe they can utilize Burks in different facets that could maybe highlight his. I'm just trying to be hopeful a little bit on that, but yeah, man. I mean, otherwise. Nobody on this offense is worth talking about. Like it's just not. I mean, who are we going to talk about?
It's a bad offense, and we can't even talk about any of the quarterbacks, like you're saying.
I think Jackson Arnold didn't play well, but he was doomed to failure in this game because his offensive line was bad. His wide receiver position is jacked up and just not healthy right now. Play calling
was bad.
Yeah. And then you threw a kid in that looked better than Jackson Arnold, but it's also like to what you said before. Nobody prepared for Michael Hawkins in this game, right? Like you didn't prepare for number 9 to come in. So yeah, he had a couple flash plays, but I mean, if we're going to go to the positive side though, I mean, there's a lot to talk about good on the Oklahoma defense from this game, in my opinion.
So let's jump in that direction.
Yeah.
This Oklahoma defense, I said this leading into the game, this is the best defense that Venables has had at Oklahoma. It's getting better on a year-to-year basis. You're seeing all the athletes. Yeah, this is slowly becoming extremely reminiscent of what he had at Clemson. Like there is a total path for them to be total headbangers in the SEC in the future. I think next year is like really the year where Oklahoma is going to hit their stride because of what they're working through at quarterback, what they're working through in offense. I don't know if Latrell is going to make it through this season unless there is a bit of a rapid turnaround. But they're probably going to spend the money and try and go get somebody big. But there is so much to like defensively. I had two kids that I really loved at linebacker that aren't named Danny Stutzman. You got the double Lewis combo.
Can I say one thing about Danny Stutzman real
Go
quick,
ahead.
Joe? I just want to do this real quick. Danny Stutzman is a big, good-looking athlete, 6'4", verified, 240 pounds, and he can run, dude. Like, he's a very good space linebacker. He made a couple nice plays in this game coming downhill, but there are just way too many times that he is in the wrong spots. His eyes are not good. He's slow to react at times. He's a guesser on the second level. He's going to get overdrafted, though. I actually would put if there's a future pick for Danny Stutzman to be a first-round pick, I would take it, I think. The NFL is going to draft that kid very high, in my opinion. But
you know who he reminds me of? Troy Anderson.
He reminds me of John Davis. That's who he reminds me of. Just this long,
was he that
athlete.
Big? Was John Davis 6'4"?
Yeah, John Davis is huge, dude. He was like 6'3" and some change at least, 240-something pounds. Like, he was huge, yeah. So I think that he is
6'3", yeah.
Yeah, I think he's a different version of John Davis. I think that he's incredibly explosive. He's athletic. He can move, and he's huge. He's got a massive frame, and there are flashes, but I think that we undervalue how important instincts are on the second level, and man, I just don't think he has good instincts as a linebacker.
Well, these two kids who are the complete opposite of Danny Stutzman, they're smaller.
Yeah.
They're a little more compact, and they've got I wouldn't say great instincts, but flashed some of those instincts. I'm talking about Kip Lewis and Lewis Carter. So you got the Lewis combo there. I'm going to try and turn that into a thing. Kip Lewis is a redshirt sophomore, and then Lewis Carter is a true sophomore. They're both kind of similarly built to the point where I thought that Lewis Carter was I thought he was a defensive back. Like he's pretty lean. What both these guys did that shined for me is that they tackle well, they fly upfield, they chase after the football. There were so many times I had to write them down because it felt like the play would be ending, and I'd look and it'd be like, oh, one of these dudes, their nose is just in the play. It's somewhere to be found that you can spot them on film near where the football is when the play is finishing. That usually means that they've got a good instincts, that they're paying attention, that they know how to react properly. I think both those guys, as they grow and progress in a couple of years or in a year's time, that they could be top linebackers in college football.
Yeah, I mean, because I think Kip Lewis is 6'1", 227, and then Lewis Carter is 6 foot, 227. So yeah, they're mirror images of one another. They are more downhill. They're a little denser, but also they're a little bit more, I wouldn't say range limited, but like they are downhill players. They're not really guys that you're going to play in space a ton overall. So yeah, they flash for sure. If I go to the defensive line, Joe, I think that a guy that I don't know if excited is the right word, but I'm just like so content with my opinion of him is Ethan Downs, number 40, the defensive end. Bro,
yep.
He just does his job, and he's just a solid player. There's nothing flashy. He's never going to be a big sack artist in the NFL, but I think that he is a second defensive end, not in a starting set. I'm saying like a rotational defensive end that is going to play in the NFL for a pretty long time. I wouldn't be shocked if he's a backup defensive end that has 4 to 6 sacks every single year and defends the run well because he's just a good, solid overall player. 6'4", 265, strong hands, plays with great efforts, pretty good in a straight line. Maybe he's not the lateral mover that you need from the position and a little bit lack of flexibility, but he's going to play in the NFL, Ethan Downs, in my opinion.
Yeah, man. He, the size, the power, the profile fits exactly what you'd look for as like a day 3 pick. And I don't know if you and I were in agreement on like our grading for him. I don't know if I'm seeing that he's taking this big step forward this year, but to what you just said, he's reaffirming our opinions on him, which is a good thing. Like that is always a good thing that when you see a draftable guy that has the frame that could be a rotational defensive lineman in the NFL, if you're confirming our assumptions over the summer, that means that they're playing to expectation. You always hope that sometimes they exceed expectation, but he's playing to it.
Comp. I have a comp for him. Are you ready for this? Okay. I don't even know if you know who this player is. I'm not even sure if you do.
Try
but
me.
Time period wise, you definitely probably at least maybe remember him a little bit. Croy Bierman. That's who he reminds me of. Do you remember Croy Bierman?
I vaguely remember him.
Dude, he played with the Atlanta Falcons, and he actually started a decent amount, but that was what he was, dude. He just was a lunch pail, physical run defender who would have like 4 to 5 sacks a year, but like you knew he was a valuable asset to a football team in the end. Croy Bierman, man, I really liked him. I think he might have went to Montana. Did Croy Bierman go to Montana? I think he was an FCS kid. Almost positive. I'm going to look that up while we transition. Okay. But 2 defensive linemen that are a little bit less known commodities that excite me.
He's from the state of Montana. He did play at Montana.
I knew it. Man, I'm good, dude. I am really
6'3", 255. Anyone else on defense that you liked?
2 defensive linemen that are not younger. I mean, they're juniors, but guys to keep an eye on that I think are a little bit more exciting. One is Grayson Halton, who's number 56. He is, if you're a Notre Dame fan, which we both are, he is Oklahoma's Howard Cross. He is like 6'1", 290 pounds, but the kid's quick as all hell, man, and he can one gap with the best of them. He's incredibly quick, so there might be a little bit of a limitation on him size-wise, but the kid can go as an interior penetrator. And then the one guy who was injured last year but is finally starting to flash more and more, R. Mason Thomas, number 32. He had 1 rep in this game where he actually started out as like might have been like a 4 alignment up front, a 4 tech, but then he kind of worked outside shoulder, and you could see the speed and flexibility that he has. He had a 3-sack performance the game before this one, and I think you're starting to just see him flash more and more. He hasn't played a ton of high volume right now for Oklahoma as a true junior, but I think if he gets more and more reps, I think that the flashes are certainly there to get excited about.
And just to kind of sum up our thoughts on this defense, it's just so crazy to look at this unit and to see that there is the blueprint of the Brent Venables Clemson defenses, where rangy, fast, compact linebackers, really just mauling interior guys, tall, long edge rushers, all that stuff it's built up front in the front 7. And that was why I never had a fear. Like some people were claiming that Oklahoma was going to struggle in the long term in the SEC. That's not the case. They're going to be able to match up. They just need to recruit better at offensive line in the high school ranks, and they need to be able to move the ball better offensively. You had something?
I was just going to say that's going to be a hindering point for them if they do just kind of, I don't want to say level out, maybe. Like I don't know what the word is correctly, but the offensive line recruiting has not been good at Oklahoma the last couple of years. Like that needs to take a step forward. Then obviously whoever the next offensive coordinator is needs to be a good hire. If those 2 things happen, then I agree. Long-term could be pretty good at Oklahoma, but it's going to depend on those two big things. And finding a quarterback. We got to see who the quarterback is long-term as well. But yeah.
QB1 for 2026, Nico Iamaleava.
Is that how you say that? Iamaleava?
I think so. I prefer to call him Nico to avoid being disrespectful to his last name. We'll hear it enough times that we'll get it right. It's just like with DJU. We know to say Uiagalelei, but DJU is just a little bit more pithy and easy to say. But Nico, we had mentioned this with the Dylan Raiola conversation that we had. Weirdly to say this, I think Raiola's further along in terms of decision making, which is kind of crazy to throw out there.
Yes.
But I'm very confident in Nico's progression because of the offense that he's playing in, the head coach that he's working with, seeing how Hendon Hooker, his traits were maximized. I just love that he's not afraid to be aggressive. He's not afraid to take shots. He's not afraid to see a tight window and to trust his arm. I mentioned that with Raiola. Young quarterbacks who know that they have the traits and the ability and the confidence to trust those traits. Complete opposite of what Jackson Arnold did, where he looked so timid and scared at times. Nico has the goods. He's a freakish runner, too, that I think not enough people talk about because he's so big and you just see him operate in the pocket. I would just love for him to have a better sense of how to evaluate pressure and how to know how to get away from pressure. That's where I think Raiola is better than him currently at the current moment. But all the goods are there, man. Like it's all there for him to be the top quarterback next year.
And they always were, because I actually followed him when he was a recruit, obviously, and he ended up a 5-star by a couple different services, Joe. But like you knew he was a little bit of a boomer bust kid in high school, as far as like you need to find the right situation, and he picked the perfect landing spot, in my opinion. Like this is a perfect.
Whoever consulted him on this deserves a raise. I don't know if it was just his own decision making or not.
In a offense that works, obviously you're an open field team, you're a spread team, but like working outside the numbers, deep ball, like that is perfect for Nico, dude. Absolutely perfect. Yeah, I think you mentioned it. I highlighted it in one rep that he had. There was a rep where he was rolling to his left and he made like a couple Oklahoma players miss in space where I was just like, brother, like that's different at 6'6", 215 plus, right? Someone,
Yeah.
I think it might have been Corey Kinnan in the group chat I'm in, Joe, said like body type movement based. He reminds him a lot of Trevor Lawrence. And like, yeah, like I could see it for sure. I mean, body type wise, like just from the profile of being able to run and being a bigger body, like there are a lot of parallels to like a Trevor Lawrence, which is, and that's not me saying he's going to be the first overall pick because like in this game, I think this was a perfect symbol of Nico. Nico throws a beautiful deep ball. He's got a hose for an arm. He's a really athletic kid and he's pretty tough as well. But evaluating pressure, throwing with a little bit more ball placement, general ball placement, like those things still need to come with him. But like if we're talking about just the baseline of being a potential top 10 pick in the 2026 NFL draft, the kid's got the goods, man. Like there's no reason to think that with Josh Heupel in another year after this, that he can't be that type of guy.
Yeah, there is a ton of potential there. And there's a reason why everybody's been hyping him up, and it's not exactly a hot take that we're coming to the table with. I'm disappointed that I didn't get to see Lance Hurd because it seems like he was having a pretty good start to
he's the massive kid
season.
from LSU, right? The transfer. Yeah.
Yeah, he was hurt. It sounded like a lot of people were saying that he was having a great start to the year, and maybe we'll get eyes on him later. Dylan Sampson at running back. Probably
Solid.
not. Yeah, probably not like a top running back in this class, but great contact balance, man. Runs hard. We didn't see enough evidence of like that second year for him, but he's a big back, man. I think that could be a nice spell back in the NFL with the way that he runs, and he loves the spin. He absolutely loves that spin move.
Yeah, I highlighted one play of Sampson near the goal line. I agree. He plays with good contact balance, and he also plays with good forward lean while maintaining balance overall. So, like, I think he has a place without question. Wide receiver wise, Joe, if I could highlight two kids real quick, ready?
Yes, who you got?
Brew McCoy, who was a former 5-star that started his career at USC. He's had a tumultuous, just kind of weird winding road of a career, but 6'2", 1/8, 218 pounds. He's going to be a 25-year-old rookie. Right, so like he is an old prospect.
He is,
but
my
man,
age. That is insane.
Joe, I like him a lot though, brother. As a football player, he had one. I think it was just a pump and go on the outside. I can't remember exactly what it was.
And then you're talking about.
He had an RPO where he run just like some type of deep in cut where he had some yard after catch. Dude, this kid at 6'2", 1/8 and 218 pounds verified. He runs well. Like I think he's going to be a 4.5 flat or better, and he's a strong physical athlete. So, yeah, he might not be good for long-term value in the NFL, but if I was a team that was picking in the 3rd, 4th rounds, I'd be okay with Brew McCoy, dude. I think he's deceptive. I think he's smart. I think he's powerful. I liked a lot of what I saw from Brew McCoy in this game.
Who's the 40-year-old kid who was a receiver at Tennessee? And Velus Jones. Who was like 26 coming out.
He was a 26-year-old rookie, I think. Yeah.
Now he's a running back, and that's not really working out for him. I'm not comparing the two, but it made me think of that. Who was the other receiver?
Dante Thornton, who is
slant that he took to the house, man. That was a freaking play that he had.
This kid is averaging 34 yards a catch this year, Joe. 34 yards per catch. He's listed at 6 foot.
He's getting chased by Chattanooga defenders, so that's part of it.
Well, yeah, sure. But he made a big play in this game for a long touchdown.
Yes.
He's 6'5", 214 pounds, former top recruit. He was at Oregon at first. Then he transferred. Obviously, he was another hot commodity in the portal. 6'5", 214. This kid can run, dude. I'm telling you, this kid's going to run like 4.4 mid. He's going to be like a 4.45 kid at 215 pounds and 6'5". This kid has the juice, man. He doesn't look that fast, but it's just because he's a long strider. And then you just watch him just like, well, he's pulling away from everybody. Like the kid can absolutely run. So he's been a low volume, high yard kind of receiver so far. But man, if he gets more opportunities, that Thornton kid's got all the upside in the world.
He separated ridiculously quick on that play. He's got some serious juice. We're going to be back next week with our next 2 games that we're going to be breaking down. So make sure you're subscribed. Leave us a 5-star review on audio at Joe DeLeone, at Rise and Draft, at the First Team Pod on Twitter. We'll talk to you folks later.